So now that we've been able to test that we can load this in and all the data shows up, let's handle the use case for actually clicking on the Add to List button. So here we go, right here. I'm actually going to grab all of this stuff and copy and paste that. And then we'll just get rid of a ton of the assertions here. And really, we need to have a user in the database. They need to be authenticated. We need to have a book to add, and we need to wait for the loading to finish before we can actually continue. So now that we're in a good spot, we can actually say screen debug and take a look at what things look like now. Let's also change the title of this test. That kind of makes sense. So can create a list item for the book. And here's what things look like at this point. So we've got all of the book information in here, and we have a button, add to list. So we just want to click on that button and then verify that once the loading state is all gone, we have the right things showing up on the screen, and some of the other things should not be showing up on the screen. So first, let's get that add to list button from screen get by role button, and the name is going to be add to list. And then we want to click on this, and so let's grab user event from testing library, user event, and down here we'll click on that button with user event, click, add to list button. And then the first thing that should happen when we click on it is we want to disable that button to make sure that the user can't add it multiple times. So let's add an assertion for that, to be disabled. And then it has a spinner, and that's labeled with loading. So let's copy and paste this. We'll just wait for all of the loading indicators to be removed before we continue, and we'll have that screen debug to see what things look like at that point. So here we go. So far, so good. And now we have a mark as read button and a remove from list button, and we don't have the add to list button anymore. We also have the start date for this. So let's make some assertions about all of this. So we'll expect screen get by role button with the name mark as read. And we expect that to be in the document. And we'll also expect the remove from list to be in the document as well. And another thing that should be in the document is this notes text box. So let's expect screen get by role text box with the name of notes to be in the document. And we'll also want to verify that the other status buttons are not there. So we'll expect screen query by role, because it's not going to be there, button with the name add to list, not to be in the document. And the other button should be the mark as unread. That shouldn't be in the document either. And then the star rating shouldn't actually show up until we've actually finished the book. So let's add another expectation for screen query by role, radio, name, star, not to be in the document as well. So let's save that. And we should get a passing test here, which we do. Very good. So there's one last assertion that I think would be valuable to make, and that is the start date should show up. But that's a little bit tricky because this is going to change every single day. And so we can't hard code an assertion in here to say it should be June 20th. And we could fake out timers a little bit, make a fake date or something. But that's actually a lot harder than what we're going to do. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to get my start date node with screen get by label text. And here the label text is the start date right there. So say start date. And then we'll expect the start date node to have text content. And the text content is basically the formatted date version of date.now. So I'm going to bring in our format date utility, utils miscellaneous, and we're going to use that in our test. Normally, I don't recommend this. You shouldn't normally bring in anything but the thing that you're explicitly testing in your test, as well as any test utilities that you need and anything that you need for cleanup. But in this case, our format date function is really well unit tested, and alternatives to this approach are more complicated than they need to be. So I'm going to copy that format date utility, and we'll pass in new date to that. And so we're simply saying that the start date should be a formatted date of whatever today is. And that will work today and tomorrow and next year. Great. So we've got awesome assertions, all passing. Let's review what we've got here. So for the first part of this test, we basically need all the same things that we had in our last test. We need a user, we need a book, and we need to wait for the loading state to go away. And then we can click on the Add to List button. We verified that it's disabled when we click on it. And then we wait for the loading state to go away again. And then we can verify that Mark is Read shows up, Remove from List shows up, the notes show up, and the start date is correct. And then we verify that Add to List isn't there, Mark is Unread shouldn't be there, and the star ratings shouldn't be there either.